You see yourself as a good person. You're quick to help, you try to be fair, and you'd never dream of manipulating anyone on purpose. But what if there's a part of you, deep in your unconscious, that's secretly pulling the strings? What if it's using subtle, toxic behaviors to control the people around you, without you even noticing? In this video, we'll look at 5 unsettling behaviors through the lens of one of Carl Jung's most famous ideas, the shadow. This isn't about blame. It's about radical self-awareness. The Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung was a titan of psychology, and he spent his life exploring the hidden territories of the human mind. He gave us huge concepts like the collective unconscious and archetypes, but the most important one for us today is the shadow. The shadow, in Jungian psychology, is the unconscious part of our personality that our conscious ego would rather not see. It's where we stuff all the impulses, desires, and traits we've been taught are unacceptable, our rage, our envy, our selfishness. But we don't get rid of these parts. We just push them into the dark, where they don't disappear. They gain power, operating in the background and influencing our actions in ways we can't always see. Jung famously warned, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That quote, it's really the heart of our discussion here. We're going to explore how that unconscious shadow can show up as behaviors that seem, well, innocent, but are actually forms of covert manipulation, what some today call dark psychology. Now, this isn't a term from Jung's time, but it's a modern label for these patterns. These aren't the moves of an evil mastermind, no. They're the actions of a normal person who hasn't yet looked into their own darkness. By the end of this, you won't just see others more clearly, you'll have a mirror held up to yourself. The real question is, are you brave enough to look? Let's begin with the first and maybe the most deceptively virtuous sign. The first sign, it's a pattern we can call the helpful controller. On the surface, this looks like pure selflessness. You're the one who's always there for everyone. You give advice, you fix problems, and you anticipate needs before they're even spoken. You're the rock, the go-to person, the one who holds it all together. People rely on you, and, well, that feels good. It really does feel good to be needed, but we have to look deeper at the unconscious engine driving this endless support. For the helpful controller, you see, helping isn't always about generosity. It's often a deep, unconscious strategy for control. The help you offer comes with invisible strings. By constantly solving other people's problems, you inadvertently create a system where they depend on you. You become, well, the hub for their decisions and successes. You're not empowering them, you're making them reliant on you. This reliance keeps them in your orbit, ensures they value you, and most importantly, makes sure they won't leave you. From a Jungian perspective, this often comes from a shadow that's terrified of being powerless or insignificant. Maybe somewhere in your past, you learned that you were only valued when you were useful. That wound, it gets buried in the unconscious. As an adult, your conscious mind builds a persona of the super helpful person because, well, it feels noble. But the shadow's real goal is to keep that old feeling of worthlessness from ever coming back. Control, disguised as help, becomes its main defense. Manipulation, you see, is often a symptom of unresolved pain. For instance, imagine your friend is struggling in their career. A truly supportive friend listens and offers encouragement. The helpful controller, however, they go into overdrive. They'll rewrite your friend's entire resume. They'll spam them with job listings. They'll draft emails for them to send. They'll call constantly to check in, but it feels more like an audit. Your friend, at first grateful, starts to feel pressured and, well, even incompetent. They can't make a move without your approval. If they apply for a job you didn't pick, you might say with subtle disappointment, "Oh, really? I'm not sure that one's the best fit, but it's your choice, of course." That, of course, is dripping with disapproval. Your help has become a cage, and you're the zookeeper holding the keys. The dark psychology here is so tricky because, it's wrapped in kindness. The person being manipulated feels guilty for feeling suffocated. I mean, how can you complain about someone doing so much for you? This leads to immense confusion and self-doubt. You're essentially being controlled by a debt of gratitude. So ask yourself with total honesty, do you feel a compulsion to give advice, even when it's not asked for? Do you get anxious or resentful when people don't take it? When someone you help succeeds without you, does a tiny part of you feel left out or annoyed? Are you drawn to people you think need fixing? Answering yes might mean your shadow is using helpfulness as a tool for control. Recognizing this isn't about judging yourself. It's the first step toward offering real support, the kind that's free from the need to manage the lives of others. But what happens when control isn't enough? Sometimes the shadow needs to use emotional leverage. This brings us to our second sign, a tactic that turns fairness into a weapon. The second sign is the fair guilt tripper. This person, well, they're all about fairness and reciprocity. They keep a really detailed, though often unconscious tally of every good deed, every favor, and, well, every sacrifice. On the surface, that sounds pretty admirable, right? They believe in give and take, and they really pride themselves on always doing their part. They'll say things like, "I'll get this one, you get the next." Or, "Hey, I helped you move, so I was kinda hoping you could help me." It all sounds perfectly reasonable, doesn't it? But here's the dark twist. This mental ledger isn't actually used to keep things balanced. Oh no, it's used to create guilt and manipulate behavior. You see, for the fair guilt tripper, kind acts aren't really gifts at all. They're investments. And when they need to cash in, they absolutely leverage your sense of obligation. Their requests are always framed with that language of fairness, but really, they feel like demands you just can't refuse, without looking like, well, a jerk. A classic opening, for example, is, "After all I've done for you." And that immediately reframes the situation, doesn't it? It's no longer just a simple request, you see? No. It's a test of your character. Or maybe it's the more subtle, "I would do it for you." That implies a moral contract that you're just about to break. So the choice isn't about whether you can or even want to do the favor anymore. No. Now, it's about whether you're as good a person as they are. Jungian psychology would suggest this comes from a shadow that's afraid of being taken for granted. There's often a hidden insecurity at play, a belief that they have to earn love and respect through transactions because they don't feel inherently worthy. Their obsession with fairness is a way to make relationships predictable and safe, but when their unspoken needs aren't met, the shadow lashes out with guilt. It's a passive-aggressive way of saying, "You owe me, and if you don't pay up, you're a bad person." As some analysts note, guilt can become a punishing state that destroys well-being. Let's say a mother constantly sacrifices for her adult child. She babysits at a moment's notice and lends money she can't really spare. She tells herself it's all out of love. But when the child wants to spend a holiday with their in-laws, the mother's shadow appears. She won't forbid it. Instead, she'll sigh and say, "Oh, okay. I guess I'll just be here alone. It's fine, don't worry about me. I understand." Every word there is engineered to trigger guilt. Alone paints a picture of abandonment. And "it's fine, don't worry" is classic reverse psychology. It means the exact opposite. The child is now trapped. Go, and they'll feel guilty. Stay, and they'll feel resentful. The mother, likely not even fully aware of what she's doing, has used her past sacrifices to control a present decision. The fair guilt tripper doesn't see themselves as manipulative. In their own mind, they're just holding others to a standard of fairness. They feel genuinely hurt when others don't reciprocate, casting themselves as the victim. But this victimhood is a powerful, manipulative stance. It lets them take the moral high ground, while forcing others to do what they want. To see if this pattern is in your shadow, just think about it. When you do something nice, do you expect something in return, even if you don't say it? Do you keep a mental tally in your relationships? When you feel let down, is your first instinct to remind the person of all the times you were there for them? If this sounds familiar, it's a call for introspection. The way out is to learn to give freely, without expecting a return. It's realizing that true generosity isn't a transaction. Now we move from emotional leverage to something even more disorienting: the manipulation of reality itself. The third sign is one of the most psychologically damaging. It's the honest gaslighter. We usually think of gaslighting as a deliberate, malicious lie. But when it comes from the shadow, it can be a subtle, reflexive defense mechanism. It's used by people who truly believe they're just being honest or rational. The honest gaslighter, they don't actually set out to make you question your sanity. They do it because their own ego is so fragile it can't handle being wrong. Their identity is really built on being the logical one. The one who remembers things correctly. So when you challenge that with a different memory or even just a feeling, it feels like a genuine threat to their entire being. And to protect themselves, you see, their shadow automatically works to invalidate your reality. This is a textbook example of what Jung called shadow projection. Projection is when we unconsciously attribute our own unacknowledged flaws to someone else. The honest gaslighter can't own their own mistakes or irrational emotions, so they project them onto you. In their mind, they aren't lying. They're correcting your flawed perception. They genuinely believe their version of reality is the only one. Here's how it plays out. You tell your partner, "When you joked about my new haircut in front of our friends, it really embarrassed me." A healthy partner might say, "I'm sorry. I didn't realize. I can see why that hurt you." The honest gaslighter, however, can't accept that their harmless joke caused pain. That would mean admitting to being insensitive, and so their shadow, it jumps in to rewrite the story. They might say, "You're being way too sensitive. It was obviously a joke, everyone else was laughing." Notice the tactics. "You're too sensitive" shifts the problem from their behavior to your reaction. "It was obviously a joke" dismisses the impact it had on you. "Everyone else was laughing" uses social pressure to isolate you. You came to them with a feeling and left questioning your own emotional stability. They did it all calmly, honestly explaining why your reality is wrong. Another common form is when they dispute your memory. You'll recall a promise, and they'll say with total conviction, "I never said that." You're misremembering. They aren't always consciously lying, you see. Their mind has a powerful self-defense mechanism that can literally change their memory to protect their ego. Jung believed the unconscious could powerfully direct our actions, making us mistake its impulses for fact. So how can you spot this in yourself? It takes a lot of humility. When someone criticizes you, is your first instinct to defend yourself or to listen? Do you often tell people they're overreacting or being too emotional? Do you have a burning need to have the last word and prove your version of events is the right one? If these questions make you squirm, you might be touching a part of your shadow. Confronting this is painful, but it's the only way to move from a place of psychic defense to genuine connection. It's the only way to stop unconsciously damaging the realities of the people you care about. From twisting reality, we now turn to a sign that exploits it, by casting oneself as the hero of a tragic story. The fourth sign is embodying the archetype of the victim manipulator. This is one of the most powerful and sneaky forms of emotional control because it hides behind helplessness and pain. The victim manipulator doesn't demand or threaten. Instead, they wield their suffering like a weapon, making others feel responsible for their happiness and obligated to meet their needs. Consciously, this person genuinely feels wronged by the world. They have a story they believe completely, that life has been uniquely unfair to them. They see themselves as perpetually unlucky and misunderstood. Their conversations are filled with tales of woe, how they've been mistreated, and how things just never go their way. They aren't lying about their pain. In fact, they feel it deeply. The dark psychology here lies in how this victimhood is unconsciously used to manipulate. You see, by constantly broadcasting their suffering, they create a gravitational pull of sympathy. People around them feel forced to help, soothe, and fix. This gives the victim manipulator a ton of passive power. They get what they want without ever asking for it directly. They can dodge responsibility because, in their story, nothing is ever their fault. From a Jungian view, the victim archetype can really take over when the shadow is full of unacknowledged needs for power and control, plus a deep fear of responsibility. It's often easier to believe you're powerless than to face the terrifying freedom and accountability that come with making your own choices. So this stance can actually be a way to have passive control over their life. Let's look at a workplace scenario. A colleague consistently misses deadlines. When confronted, they don't take ownership. Instead, they launch into a story about how overwhelmed they are. They'll talk about problems at home, a mysterious ailment, or how someone else didn't get them information on time. They paint themselves as a tragic figure, battling impossible odds. The manager eases up, and other team members, feeling guilty, pick up the slack. The victim manipulator has successfully used sympathy as a shield. In relationships, this is even more toxic. Imagine you try to express a need to your partner. I feel lonely when you play video games all night. Instead of addressing your feeling, they hit back with their own victim narrative. I'm so sorry I'm such a terrible partner. I just have no energy after my horrible job. I guess I can't do anything right. The conversation is completely derailed. You are now the unreasonable accuser, and you'll probably find yourself comforting them. People stuck in this pattern often don't realize the power they have. They genuinely feel powerless. But their shadow has learned that vulnerability can be weaponized. It attracts rescuers, and a rescuer is someone you can control through their own desire to help. To see if this archetype is in your shadow, ask yourself, do you often talk about how unfair your life is? When things go wrong, do you immediately look for someone or something to blame? When someone gives you feedback, do you respond with excuses instead of taking ownership? If this feels familiar, the way out is the path of radical responsibility. It means consciously choosing to see yourself as an agent in your own life, not a passive victim of fate. It involves what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming your whole true self, which includes owning your strengths and your weaknesses. Finally, we arrive at the most modern and seemingly enlightened form of unconscious manipulation, one that disguises itself as pure optimism. The fifth and final sign is the positive denier, a practitioner of what's often called toxic positivity. This person seems like a beacon of light. Their motto is, good vibes only. They meet every problem with a smile and a platitude. When you're down, they rush to tell you to look on the bright side, or that everything happens for a reason. Now, what could possibly be wrong with promoting happiness? The dark psychology here is very subtle. The positive denier isn't actually helping you. No, they're silencing your negative emotions, your sadness, your anger, and your fear. they make them uncomfortable. Your pain might trigger their own repressed shadow content. That's the darkness they're desperately trying to avoid. So their advice to be positive isn't for you, it's for them. It's an unconscious tactic designed to shut down your feelings, just so they can feel comfortable again. In Jungian terms, this is a profound denial of the shadow. The shadow holds what we call the negative parts of being human: grief, rage, despair. Jung taught that wholeness comes not from being perfect, but from integrating all parts of ourselves, including the difficult ones. The positive denier, well, they refuse to do this work. They live in a fragmented state, clinging to the light, because they're terrified of their own shadow. And they project that fear onto you. For example, you've just lost your job and you feel scared. You confide in a friend who responds with, "Don't be so negative. This is an opportunity. Something better is coming. You just need a positive mindset." This response is deeply invalidating. It dismisses your real feelings of fear and loss. It implies that your emotional state is wrong. You're left feeling not just sad, but also ashamed of your sadness. And in families, this can be even more damaging. Imagine a teenager struggling with anxiety who tries to talk to a parent. And that parent says, "You have so much to be grateful for. Think of all the good things in your life." This is a form of emotional gaslighting. The parent is denying the child's internal reality. The child learns that it's not safe to express negative emotions and starts to suppress their pain, driving it deeper into the unconscious. The positive denier. Well, they use positivity as an emotional control tool. It's a way of saying, essentially, your negative emotions are not welcome here. Please fix them for my comfort. They create relationships where only a sanitized range of feelings is allowed. This isn't connection, it's performance. To see if this lives in you, ask yourself, when a friend is upset, do you feel an urgent need to cheer them up? Are you uncomfortable just sitting with someone who is sad or angry? Do you find yourself using phrases like "at least" or "it could be worse"? Do you believe that being positive is a moral virtue and being negative is a character flaw? If you see yourself in this, it doesn't mean you're a bad person, not at all. It likely means you're afraid of your own shadow. The path to integration, well, it's to practice genuine empathy, the willingness to feel with someone. It means learning to say, "That sounds incredibly hard," and making space for pain without rushing to fix it. True positivity isn't about denying darkness. It's the courage to face darkness and still believe in light. We've explored 5 hidden corners of the psyche, showing how unconscious shadow behaviors can look like good intentions, but really they function as covert manipulation. We've seen the helpful controller, the fair guilt tripper, the honest gaslighter, the victim manipulator, and the positive denier. If any of these resonated, it's normal to feel uncomfortable. But, as Jung taught, there's no coming to consciousness without pain. This isn't a time for blame, but for self-recognition. Knowing your own darkness is the best way to deal with the darkness in others. And more importantly, it's the only way to become whole. The goal here isn't to label yourself or others. It's to understand that these behaviors are often symptoms of unhealed wounds. They are the desperate strategies of a psyche trying to feel safe and in control. The real work starts now. It's the work of what Jung called shadow integration, that brave process of looking inward and acknowledging the parts of yourself you've rejected. It's asking, things like, what is my fear of powerlessness telling me? Why do I feel my worth is a transaction? What am I so afraid of admitting? Why am I terrified to take full responsibility? And what sadness am I refusing to feel? This is the journey to becoming who you truly are, a lifelong process Jung called individuation. By bringing these shadow elements to light, you take away their power. You're no longer a puppet of your own unconscious. As Jung powerfully stated, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Today, you have a choice. You can keep calling it fate, or you can choose to awaken and begin the liberating work of becoming truly whole. We'd love to continue this conversation. In the comments, share which of these signs resonated with you the most, or if you've ever experienced them. You know, your story can be a light for others. And if you're ready to continue exploring psychology and self-awareness, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. There's always more to uncover in the fascinating landscape of the human mind. Thank you for walking this path with us.